Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling self-sabotage. And we've got Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is You, as our guide.
Yeah. It's like we've got this map to help us understand those sneaky patterns that can hold us back.
Yeah.
But it's going to be more like an inspiring hike than a scary climb.
Totally. And we'll uncover how self-sabotage shows up, the reasons behind it. AD give you practical tips from the book to break free. So get ready for those aha moments.
I think we all have them lurking in there somewhere.
Okay, so the book kicks off with this awesome metaphor, the mountain, to represent all those inner obstacles. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. You know, most of us, we have these goals and dreams, but then we find ourselves procrastinating or making excuses or just giving up altogether. It's like we're standing at the base of this mountain and something's stopping us from taking that first step.
And Weiss really flips the script on how we see self-sabotage. It's not about self-hatred or weakness, but about those unmet needs and deep-seated fears driving our actions.
Yeah, and that's where those aha moments come in. For example, she talks about procrastination and how it's not always about being lazy. Sometimes it's about fear of success.
Wait a minute. Fear of success. I think I need a little help understanding that one.
Well, think about it. Success can bring vulnerability, pressure, even fear of the unknown. So sometimes subconsciously we hold ourselves back to avoid those uncomfortable feelings. It's like sticking with what we know, even if it means giving up on our dreams.
That's making me rethink my own procrastination habits. So we've got these patterns, but the book also digs into different types of self-sabotage, right?
Definitely. Wiest explores how it shows up in relationships, our work, even how we see our accomplishments. One example is this pattern called uprooting, where we're always seeking fresh starts without dealing with the root issues.
So it's like always switching jobs, ending relationships too soon, or chasing that new beginning without ever really settling down.
Exactly. It's like running away from something instead of facing it head on. Wiest suggests this often comes from fear of commitment or believing we're not worthy of lasting happiness.
Wow. Okay, so another one she talks about is surrounding ourselves with people who drain us, like friends or partners who bring negativity and drama.
Yeah, why would we do that? It seems counterintuitive.
It does, right?
Well, Weiss suggests it might be a way of avoiding genuine connection. Maybe we're afraid of being alone or deep down believe we don't deserve to be treated well.
That's a lot to unpack. So we've got these patterns of behavior, but the book also dives into the emotional roots of self-sabotage.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Weist really emphasizes that unresolved emotions and past trauma can shape our self-sabotaging behaviors. It's like our past experiences, especially those early childhood ones, leave these emotional imprints that affect our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors even now.
So it's not just about willpower. There's a whole layer of emotional baggage we might be carrying around without realizing it.
Exactly. That's where self-discovery comes in, becoming aware of those emotional wounds and learning how to heal them. Wiest gives an example of someone who worries about money all the time. They might have grown up with a scarcity mindset. Maybe their parents stressed about finances constantly. Or someone struggling with trust might have experienced betrayal or abandonment in a past relationship.
I could see how that would affect them. The book provides tools for dealing with these deeper issues, right? It's not just about identifying the problem, but finding solutions.
Absolutely. Wiest offers strategies to understand and process those emotions, like journaling to untangle our thoughts and feelings, or mindfulness practices to become more present and aware of our emotional states without judging them.
So we're not stuck with these patterns. There are things we can do to break free.
That's the beauty of this book. It's hopeful. It's not about blaming ourselves for the past, but understanding how it shaped us, and then using that knowledge to build a more fulfilling future. We have the power to heal and transform even from those deep-seated wounds.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. We've talked about the mountain of self-sabotage, the different patterns it takes, and the emotional roots. Now what?
Well, next we're going to look at some tools Wiest gives us for climbing that mountain. We'll dive into emotional intelligence, explore techniques for understanding and processing emotions, and even visualize our highest potential future selves.
Now that's a deep dive. Get ready, listeners, because we're about to uncover some seriously transformative stuff.
We're just getting started.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to your deep dive into The Mountain Is You.
Last time we were getting into some deep stuff about the emotional roots of self-sabotage, and now I'm excited to explore the tools Brianna Wiest gives us to actually work with those emotions.
Instead of letting them control us.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of the most powerful tools Wiest talks about is emotional intelligence. She even calls it our climbing gear for overcoming self-sabotage.
Yeah.
We often try to just ignore or suppress our emotions, especially the negative ones.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like if we pretend they're not there, they'll magically disappear. But that never really works, does it?
Not really. In fact, suppressing our emotions often makes them even stronger.
Yeah.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can push it down for a while, but eventually it's going to pop back up with even more force.
That's such a good analogy. So instead of ignoring or suppressing those feelings, the book encourages us to actually, you know, give ourselves permission to feel them, even the messy ones.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging those feelings and understanding what they're trying to tell us. Wiest actually provides a helpful framework for interpreting those negative emotions.
Oh, can you give us an example? What does that look like?
Sure, let's say you're feeling guilty about something. Instead of just wallowing in that guilt, ask yourself, what's the root cause? Does this guilt come from something you need to apologize for? Or is it based on unrealistic expectations you've placed on yourself? Maybe even expectations you've picked up from your family or society?
Ooh, that's a good question to ask. It's like we're becoming emotional detectives.
Yeah.
So once we understand the underlying cause, what do we do next?
Then we can start to address it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
If it's something you did, maybe making amends is the answer. But if it's rooted in those unrealistic expectations, then you need to work on setting healthier boundaries or practicing self-compassion. Wiest offers a whole toolbox of techniques for working through those emotions.
Like what? Give us some examples.
She talks about journaling, which can help us get those feelings out of our heads and onto paper. And mindfulness exercises like meditation, which can help us become more present and aware of our emotional states without judgment. Even visualization can be a powerful tool.
You know, one visualization exercise that really stood out to me was connecting with your highest potential future self.
Ah, yes. That's a powerful one. It's like tapping into a source of wisdom and guidance. Wiest suggests taking some time to really picture this future version of yourself, how they look, how they feel, what their life is like. What do you think that future you would say about the challenges you're facing right now?
That's such a cool way to think about it. It's like getting advice from the wisest, most experienced version of yourself. And that can help you make decisions and take actions that are aligned with your long-term goals.
Exactly. It's about bridging the gap between who you are now and who you want to become.
This is all making sense for, everyday emotions, but what about deeper emotional wounds like trauma? Does the book address that too?
It does, and this is where things can get more complex.
Oh.
One thing Wiest emphasizes is that trauma isn't just a mental experience, it's a physical one too. She says trauma is not in your head, it is in your body.
So it's like those experiences get stored in our cells, creating tension, anxiety, even physical pain. I've heard of that before, but it's still mind-blowing.
Yeah, Wiest actually gives an example in the book of a woman who had experienced a traumatic car accident. Even years later, she would experience intense anxiety whenever she had to drive. And she would have this chronic pain in her neck and shoulders that doctors couldn't explain. It was like her body was holding on to the memory of that trauma.
Wow, that's powerful. So if trauma is both mental and physical, how do we even begin to heal from that?
Wiest suggests approaching it from both angles. Talk therapy is essential to help process and make sense of those experiences. But it's equally important to address the physical side of things, too.
So things like yoga meditation or even massage could be helpful in releasing that tension that's trapped in our bodies.
Absolutely. And another crucial aspect of healing from trauma is reinstating a sense of safety. Trauma often leaves us feeling vulnerable and afraid, so creating a safe and supportive environment for ourselves, both internally and externally, is key.
It's like we're rebuilding our foundation from the ground up. I'm really seeing how all of this connects to the idea of self-mastery. It's not just about achieving goals, it's about understanding ourselves on a much deeper level.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And one aspect of self-mastery that Wiest really emphasizes is the connection between emotional intelligence and personal power. It's not about being in control all the time, but rather about learning to navigate our emotions in a healthy and productive way.
So it's about understanding our weaknesses, but not letting them define us.
Exactly. She says powerful people don't pretend they're perfect at everything. They recognize their limitations and seek out support or resources to help them grow in those areas.
That's a great reminder that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength.
And another thing Wiest talks about is the importance of being willing to be disliked.
Well, what does she mean by that?
She means recognizing that not everyone is going to approve of our choices, and that's okay. In fact, being willing to stand up for what we believe in, even if it means ruffling some feathers, is a sign of true strength.
So it's about finding that balance between being true to ourselves and being mindful of others. I like that.
And one more powerful tool Wiest offers for overcoming self-sabotage is learning to validate our own feelings.
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier about giving ourselves permission to feel those emotions, right?
Yes, but it goes even deeper than that. It's about really honoring those feelings, even the ones we might judge as bad or unacceptable. We often dismiss or minimize our own emotions.
Like telling ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way, or it's not a big deal. I definitely do that.
We all do it from time to time.
Yeah.
But Weiss suggests that this kind of emotional invalidation can actually make things worse. When we deny our feelings, we're essentially telling ourselves that they're not valid or important.
And that can lead to those emotions getting bottled up and exploding later on in unhealthy ways.
Exactly. So instead of trying to control our emotions, the book encourages us to learn how to validate them. This means acknowledging our feelings and giving ourselves permission to feel them without judgment. I love this quote from the book. Validating someone's feelings doesn't mean you agree with them. It doesn't mean you concede that they are correct. It doesn't mean that those feelings are the healthiest. It doesn't mean they are informed by logic. Validating feelings does not mean you make them more true. It means you remind someone that it is human to feel things they don't always understand.
That is such a powerful statement. And it's not just about validating our own feelings, but also about validating the feelings of others.
You're right. It's about recognizing that all of our emotions, even the ones we might judge as bad, are a part of the human experience. And by validating those feelings, we can start to understand them, process them, and ultimately move through them in a healthy way.
This is all so insightful. But now I'm curious, how does validating our feelings actually help us achieve our goals?
That's a great question, and Wiest addresses it head-on. She talks about the importance of aligning our goals with our values and principles. She argues that true happiness and fulfillment come not from chasing external achievements, but rather from living a life that's congruent with our deepest selves.
So it's not about achieving a certain level of success or acquiring certain possessions, but rather about becoming the kind of person who embodies those values.
Exactly. She suggests developing a set of personal principles to help us make choices that are aligned with our values.
What does she mean by that? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say one of your core values is honesty. This means you're committed to being truthful in your interactions with others as well as with yourself. So when you're faced with a decision, you can ask yourself, what would the most honest version of myself do in this situation?
That's such a powerful framework. It's like having a moral compass to guide us through life's challenges.
It is. And by aligning our goals with our values, we create a sense of purpose and meaning that goes beyond just achieving external success.
So it's not just about what we achieve, but how we achieve it.
Precisely. And that's a key distinction. Now, speaking of finding purpose, we can't ignore that age-old question. What is my true purpose?
Ah, yes. The question that haunts us all at some point in our lives.
And Wiest has some really interesting thoughts on this. She argues that our purpose isn't some grand, predetermined plan, but rather something that unfolds organically as we live our lives.
So it's not something we find, it's something we create.
I love that. Me too. And she suggests that one way to tap into our purpose is by paying attention to those things that come naturally to us, that we're passionate about, that bring us joy.
It's like following those breadcrumbs of excitement and curiosity, seeing where they lead us. What other advice does she offer?
She also encourages us to think about our ideal daily routine. Like, what would your day look like if you were living a life that was truly aligned with your purpose?
That's such a great question to reflect on, because if we're not enjoying the day-to-day journey, then what's the point of reaching the destination, right?
Exactly. And finally, Wiest reminds us that our purpose isn't necessarily tied to our career or some grand achievement.
So it's not about becoming the CEO or winning an award.
Not necessarily. Our purpose can be found in our relationships, our hobbies, even the small acts of kindness we perform each day. It's about showing up as our best selves and making a positive impact on the world, however big or small.
This is all so inspiring. We've covered a lot of ground here, but it feels like we're just scratching the surface of what Wiest has to offer.
You're right. And there's so much more to explore. Next time, we'll delve into the practical steps we can take to move from self-sabotage to self-mastery, starting with a shift in mindset that might surprise you.
Oh, can't wait to hear about that. This is going to be good. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been climbing this mountain of self-sabotage with Brianna Wiest. The mountains is. We've talked about, the types of self-sabotage, the emotions behind it, and even some cool tools for understanding ourselves better.
It's been quite a journey. And now we need to figure out how to use all this knowledge to actually break free from those self-sabotaging patterns.
Yeah. It's like we've reached base camp, we've got all our gear, and now we need a plan for reaching the summit.
Well, Wiest has this chapter called From Self-Sabotage to Self-Mastery, and she argues that this shift isn't about some overnight transformation. It's about making conscious choices every single day.
Like those micro shifts we talked about earlier.
Exactly, those tiny changes that can really add up over time.
Like choosing a healthy snack instead of, reaching for the sugary stuff, or taking a few minutes to meditate instead of scrolling through social media. Those little things make a difference, don't they?
Absolutely. It's like building a muscle.
Yeah.
Each time we make a healthier choice, we strengthen our self-control, and it becomes a little easier to resist those self-sabotaging urges.
So consistency is key here. But is there like a shift in mindset that can help us break free from self-sabotage?
There is, and this is where it gets really interesting. Wiest emphasizes moving from a mindset of control to a mindset of allowing, especially when it comes to our emotions.
Okay, what does that mean exactly? What's the difference?
Well, controlling our emotions might look like, let's say, recognizing that you're feeling angry, but choosing to express that anger in a calm and constructive way, rather than just lashing out.
So being aware of those feelings, but not letting them control your actions.
Exactly. Suppressing is more like trying to stuff them down and pretend they don't exist, which we know doesn't work. Allowing our emotions is about making space for them, recognizing they're a part of us, but not letting them run the show.
Okay, I think I'm getting it.
Yeah.
So instead of fighting those feelings, we're learning to acknowledge them, understand them, and even kind of embrace them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And this can be tough when it comes to those really intense emotions like anger, sadness, or fear. But Wiest argues that it's in those moments of discomfort that the real growth happens.
It's like facing the mountain head on, but embracing those uncomfortable emotions. Well, it sounds uncomfortable. How do we do that?
It takes practice for sure, and it's not always easy. But one of the most powerful tools Wiest offers is mindfulness. By learning to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment, we can create some distance between ourselves and those emotions.
So instead of getting swept away by a wave of anxiety, we can learn to, ride that wave.
Exactly. And this can be huge for our inner peace. Wiest writes, inner peace, however, that's the state in between the scales. When it's your goal, there's no way to lose.
I love that. It's like shifting from, striving and chasing happiness to cultivating a deep sense of peace and contentment within ourselves. That seems much more attainable.
Because external achievements and circumstances can be up and down, but our inner state is something we can always work on.
Okay, so mindfulness is key to inner peace. But what about those worries and anxieties that pop up no matter what?
Wiest reminds us that worry is often a form of self-sabotage. It's like we're giving our energy to negative thoughts and creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So if I'm constantly worrying about failing at something, I'm actually more likely to fail because I'm not putting my energy into succeeding.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there. But the good news is that we can choose to shift our focus. Instead of dwelling on those what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, we can focus on what we can control.
So focusing on solutions instead of problems.
Right. And another key is remembering that our feelings are not always facts.
Hold on, I need you to explain that one. What do you mean?
Well, we often get caught up in negative thought loops and start to believe everything our minds tell us, like I'm not good enough or I'm going to mess this up. And we believe those thoughts as if they were true.
I do that all the time. It's like those thoughts become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Exactly. But our thoughts were just thoughts. They're not necessarily true.
So it's about learning to question those negative thoughts and challenge those limiting beliefs.
And choosing to focus on more empowering perspectives. It's like taking control of our minds.
Okay, I'm seeing how all of this connects to mental strength. It's not just about positive thinking, it's about developing that resilience to face challenges.
You got it. And Wiest gives some really practical tips for that. She emphasizes having a plan. Mentally strong people don't just react, they think ahead.
So like a roadmap for dealing with those bumps in the road. What if we hit a roadblock?
Well, she encourages us to ask for help. Recognizing that we don't have to do everything on our own is a sign of strength, not weakness.
It's about remembering that we're not alone. We all need help sometimes.
Exactly. And finally, Wiest reminds us that mental strength isn't about being, stoic or unemotional. It's about being able to feel those emotions, process them, and move forward.
So finding that balance between vulnerability and resilience, being able to acknowledge our struggles but not letting them define us.
That's it. That's the essence of self-mastery. And it's a journey, not a destination.
It's not like we reach the top of the mountain and we're done. Self-mastery is an ongoing process.
And it's a process that's worth embracing. Remember those words from Brianna Wiest. The mountain is you, but one day this mountain will be behind you. And who you become in the process of getting over it will stay with you always.
It's like those challenges we face, the obstacles we overcome. Those are the experiences that shape us.
So true. And the more we understand ourselves, the more equipped we are to navigate those challenges and create a fulfilling life.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling ready to tackle that mountain. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Mountain Is You.
It's been a pleasure. Remember, the climb is worth it.